Hello, Econ. So this is week 35. This is the second week of personal finance, and in fact, you only have 2 more weeks where I will give you new stuff. And then for the week of finals, it's just going to be turn in whatever you can. I might have a small assignment for that week, but that's going to be it. So you got 4 things here. You notice there's very little. The only thing that's going to be added is this particular video once I'm done recording it. So let's get into the instructions. Week 35, you have 4 things. 1 set of reading notes. It's a lot less reading than last week. It's in fact less than half the amount. Then we have 2 activities, both of which will require that you, one of which will require that you go online and do some research. So activity 2 is going to be relatively quick, just going to require a bit of logic and critical thinking. The activity furnishing a home, that one is going to take a while. It is a shrunk down version of a larger assignment that I normally do this week. So this is going to require a lot of internet research and, of course, video lesson notes. So first, looking at the reading notes, we have physical fitness, which is right here, and it's going to be this one. Now, this is the same document that I pulled your other stuff from. I just broke up the PDF into pieces. So this is actually the first couple pages. So this goes over physical fitness in terms of how the people who are most successful, the ones who do long-term planning with their money. It's going to talk to you about how to think about your discipline in terms of financing. It goes over a bit of the savings. It talks about things like how to grow your money, which we talked about previously. And then that's the first couple pages. Then the next couple pages goes over budgeting and how budgeting works. And normally this is a much longer process with me and we do more practice stuff, but it is what it is. So this is going to go over how to have spending awareness, how to break it down, income and expenses. Usually I come in and I actually show you guys. Sorry, I need a drink of water there. I actually show you guys my actual budget, right? I mean, I give you the actual numbers. I sit down and I go over my bills because I pay my bills once a month, and I actually write them down, whatever the most recent month is, so you guys can see what an actual real adult budget looks like. So when you guys are doing budget, you're going to read about income and expenses, need versus want, which we talked about before, and it's all going to be about figuring out how to most properly balance your budget for what you want, right? What are the things you want to accomplish? What kind of personal rewards do you want to give yourself? Because that really is one of the tricks to successful budgeting, is making sure you can reward yourself, because you have to take care of your necessities or your needs. But if you can, this is why you want to get a good job that pays well, if you can afford it, if you've covered any long-term goals and needs, whatever money you have left over, you are allowed to spend stuff. I have what's called a fun budget, where my wife and I, we both have an allowance of $200. Now, this is everything else is what we spend to live, but every month both of us are allowed to spend up to $200 each on whatever we want. Traditionally, like before children, my wife would spend it on restaurants and movie tickets. So, she was the one who wanted to go to movies. She was the one who likes to eat at restaurants. Me, I mostly spent on books and video games, and then we'd obviously, whatever was left over, we'd bank for long-term things like our once-a-year international vacations, although that was also part of the budget. So any excess money we had would go to that fund, so that we could, maybe get a little something extra or more souvenirs or eat at even nicer restaurants when we travel. Obviously now with kids, that fun budget mostly is spent by babysitters and the 1 or 2 things we actually get to do. So for you guys, sorry about that. My cat is once again laying on my keyboard. Thank you, cat. All right, so your first activity, guys, really easy, creating a budget. And if you need further instructions as well as definitions, this is right here. So you don't need to use these other pages. These would have been only if we were in class and doing more work. Instead, you're just going to basically do this page. So this is a little more detailed explanation, but it's real simple. You're going to read these and then determine, just put an X or something here, or check, whatever you want, some kind of symbol, and determine whether or not, in fact, let's make this center mass so it's easier to read, whether or not this is a necessity, meaning something you must have to function. And let's assume that we're talking about function as a college student, because you notice there's the word school here. let's say as a college student, do you need this to function? Or is it a luxury good that you don't actually need? Or is it either way? So there are three of those. So here's what either means. Either means that whether it's a necessity or luxury depends on the situation. Okay, so there's going to be three things here which, depending on your personal situation, could be a necessity or it could be a luxury. It's simply going to depend. So that one's easy. That one should not take more than 10 or 15 minutes. This one is the much more involved. If we were in class, this is the one that I would expect us to spend like 2 to 3 days on. And even then, I actually shrunk this down a little bit from its original version. So this is still a smaller version. So this is furnishing a home. So when you guys get your first apartment, or your first house, your first rental, whatever it is, you're going to have to furnish it. I'm assuming that your parents do not have an entire extra set of stuff for you. So you're going to have to buy it. Now, in reality, you guys are probably going to buy a lot of stuff used. Okay, it's just the way it is. There's nothing wrong with that. My first apartment, which I had 3 roommates, one, of course, my now wife, then girlfriend, and I still had 3 roommates in a 2-bedroom apartment. So, suffice to say, you know, there's a lot of us, but even then, it was my first apartment. I had no money. I was just finished with 5 years of college. I just got my teaching credentials. So I was using every, used hand-me-down item I could, and those I couldn't, I did have to buy. With this, though, just for the sake of the assignment, this simple version, I just want you guys to only buy them new off of internet retailers. So Amazon's probably the easiest one to do because they have everything, but you can also use like Target or Walmart. I don't really care which one you use, and you can even switch between them if you want. But here's what I need you to do. You're going to use these retailers to determine the cost of furnishing a home based on an average American's post-high school savings/budget. So doing a little bit of research, it's about $2,000. The average American, when they get their first place, after they pay first month's rent, after they pay moving costs, they usually have somewhere around $2,000 to spend on furnishings. So you must buy all of the required items first, then see if you can afford any optional items. So let me actually change this word to required. Items are in bold. Okay. Let's fix this. Let's get rid of the bold. And then optional items are not. So there you go. So you have a $2,000 budget, and you're going to have a space to total up the prices. And keep in mind, when you total it up, if this number doesn't work, you got to go back and get rid of something, or you got to find the cheaper version. Everything must be purchased new for this exercise. In the normal, more complicated one, we would actually have a new and a used, but again, for the sake of simplicity, we're not going to do that part. Everything, blah, 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 2000. Okay, so required items. And you notice I've color-coded this so it's easy to tell which one is which. So you have the living room, the bedroom, the kitchen, which you'll notice is the biggest one because there's a lot of stuff you need to have in a kitchen. And then you got the bathroom, which is the smallest one. It's pretty simple. Now, keep in mind, these are not recurring expenses, things like, soap and food. That would be a different assignment that we're just not going to do. Or if we do it, we're going to do it next week. Instead, this one is just going to be the one-time purchases, things you buy once per place you live. Okay, so actually, let me get rid of that. So let's assume oven. Let's assume oven and range you may or may not need to buy in your first apartment. So we have in the living room the things you must have. You must have a couch and you must have a dining table with chairs. Okay, we're assuming that you want to be a functional adult. Okay, the keyword being functional here, and you're not that sad person that eats sitting on milk crates. In the bedroom, what you must have is a twin-size mattress. That's a one-person mattress, one set of twin sheets, one twin-size comforter, one mattress pad. In the kitchen, you must have a microwave. Now, in most apartments, they'll come with microwaves, but I'm essentially using microwave to kind of account for the fact that there's some various devices you're going to have that aren't really here. So we're going to use this as kind of a base of cooking utensils. You must have a dinnerware set for 4 because that's the basic one, a glassware set, and a flatware. So dinnerware is plates. When you put it into like Amazon search function, I promise it'll come up. Just put dinnerware set, put a glassware set. Those are the things you drink out of. And then flatware, for those of you who've never heard that term, that means forks, spoons, knives. Okay, you notice I didn't actually include a knife set here. So like I said, there's a couple, 1 or 2 things that I realized afterwards I didn't do. So we'll have microwave bowl to kind of take up all that. Basic set of kitchen utensils. So literally just not Google, but put in for like Amazon or Walmart, set of kitchen utensils, set of pots and pans, set of mixing bowls. The others are optional but not necessary. These, we're just doing the basic necessities. And lastly, in the bathroom, you must have a shower curtain. You must have 2 sets of bath towels. Okay, again, let's assume you're not completely sad and you only own 1 towel. Let's assume you can afford 2 sets of towels and a bath rug. Okay, that's non-negotiable because if you don't have a bath rug, you are probably going to slip and crack your skull and die. So, spend $10 to get a bath rug. At the end, go ahead and total up your prices here. Total them up here. I'm going to recommend you try to get as close to the $2,000 as you can. Then total it up and see how close you could get to $2,000. How much were you able to furnish your home as close to $2,000 as possible? Then I have 2 simple questions for you. Did you get everything you wanted? The answer for most of you should be no. Okay, if you said yes on a $2,000 budget, you have very low living standards. But I also want you to explain. Sorry, typo, I'm going to blame on the cat who chewed on my hand as I was typing. Stop that. Okay. Then, question number 2. After looking at all the furnishings available, do you think you would rather have more cheap possessions or fewer, higher quality items in your home? And this is a legitimate question, and it's one of those things you need to think about. Those of you guys who are, hoping to become adults soon, like real, actual adults, not just, live in your mom's basement adults, is what kind of home lifestyle do you want to have? Because I know people that go either direction. I know people that have lots of stuff. It's cheap, but they like to have lots of it. Like, I know people like that who just have junk and junk and junk. Or do you prefer to have fewer, higher quality items? And again, I know people like that. Like my wife and I, we have one set of friends that they like to have a lot of stuff, but usually it's kind of on the cheaper end. And then we got other friends that are much more minimalist, so they don't have a ton of stuff, but they always buy the really high quality stuff. So it can go either way, but this is your chance. As when you guys are looking at these kinds of items, it's your chance to kind of think about, like, what would you want? Would you want the really nice ones, or would you rather have everything you need, but it's really kind of janky looking? So questions, legit things you need to think about. All right, lastly, you guys have a final set of video lesson homework. The video here, and this is actually going to be the final video. I'm not going to do a crash course video next week. I will have a different one for you, but this is the last one in the series. This is called The Economics of Happiness, and it's going to talk about, so as this bit right here really does explain it perfectly. They say money can't buy happiness, but who are they? Can money buy happiness? The answer is sort of. And this is a really important concept they're going to talk about here. While money may not be able to buy true happiness, lack of money can cause very real misery. So in this video, they look at the economics of happiness, talk about how much money it takes to be happy, and how or where you should live to maximize your income to happiness ratio. Because there are factors, right? Even just where you live has a lot to do with it. For instance, maximizing income to happiness ratio for me means living closer to the beach because that's where I grew up. For you guys, it might be in the city, or maybe you don't want to be around people anymore, or maybe you want to live in another state or another country. It's going to talk about how not having money causes misery because if you can't afford things like an emergency, that's a very acute and terrible form of misery. So they're going to talk in great detail about exactly how this works. All right, guys, that's it for me. Don't forget to check out the vlog stuff for more economic readings and things like that, as well as the news of the day and options to entertain yourselves. I'm out of time. See you next week.